Hi, this is Ishan Shahani from Revsportz, and welcome to Beyond the Boundary. With us today, we have a really cool guest once again. We have a former international hockey player and the current coach of the Japanese women's hockey team, Jude Menezes. Sir, it's an honor to have you. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're doing well.
Thank you, Shan. Thank you for having me on the show. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. So, we're going to cover your coaching journey, but before that, let's just talk about your journey with hockey. How did you get introduced to the sport and what got you hooked on?
Um, my the place where I grew up in Mumbai, Orlem, had a lot of hockey players. So growing up, it was something that you just did every evening,
Yeah.
and then slowly got into it. And then I got fortunate. I got a lucky break for Tata Sports Club, which was a premier team at that time. I was 16 years old, and so that sort of really got me into it, and I haven't stopped since.
It's absolutely inspiring. And I have a question to ask you, Jude. Were the facilities enough back then? Are you happy with the progression that you're seeing in the country at the moment, or still not as satisfied?
Back then, there were no facilities,
Okay.
so you really had to struggle through and almost find your way.
Yes.
What I'm seeing now is there's a lot of structure, very organized, funding coming in through the Odisha government. So um, that makes a big difference for the athletes and for the sport. So I think the game has come a long way in India, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to go further.
Absolutely. I think we all can hope for the same. Jude, what would you say is your biggest career highlight at the moment? Is it the Olympics?
Yeah, it's everybody's dream to represent your country at the
Yeah.
Olympic Games. So I think the Sydney Olympics was probably the highlight of my career.
Yes. And how would you sum up that experience? Like, what were you feeling at that moment, and how was the whole atmosphere at that time?
Absolutely unreal because you only see some of the big stars on TV, and then
Yeah.
suddenly you're actually rubbing shoulders with these guys. And I think I was more shell shocked
Yeah.
at that stage, so not really prepared for it because it's such a big stage, and for your first time, nothing really prepares you
Yeah.
for an Olympic Games. So
That's true.
it was quite an overwhelming experience, but just great to be
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that you've represented India in 133 international matches. So, talk us through that. Talk us through your first game and probably what game or which game was your most memorable so far in that whole journey.
Yeah, so my first game was literally a baptism by fire where we lost to Netherlands 5-0.
Okay.
I barely touched the ball.
Okay.
So that was not a memorable experience, but for me, my most memorable game, I've had a few, I think, but one that stands out was the final against Pakistan in
Wow.
in in Dhaka, where
Yeah.
we won in penalties. So that was quite an exciting game and something that stands out.
Yes. And, was there a big crowd build up for that game as well? Like, is the rivalry the same that we see in other
Yeah,
games, India, Pakistan?
I think it was a bit more at that stage and a bit
Wow. Okay.
more. The crowd was
Yeah.
very loud. We were playing in Dhaka, so we didn't really have too much of local support.
Yeah.
It was a full house, very noisy stadium.
That
So
was a
yeah, and
fascinating experience.
absolutely. And in India-Pakistan match in any country, any continent
Yeah.
is tense and exciting. So yeah,
Yes.
that was probably the highlight.
Yes. And you played 133 matches, like mentioned. So to play so many matches, you have to be extremely fit. So what's your fitness regime at the moment, and what was it back then? Have you changed anything at all?
Drastically. So now I almost do not have one. But
But
back in the
you
day,
still look really fit, so that's a good thing.
yeah, I try to stay active on the hockey field, hitting
Yeah.
balls and doing stuff, but not as much as I'd like. Um, but back in the day, you were playing so much sport and hockey in
Hmm.
particular, so there was no time for anything else. So you naturally were very fit because
Yes.
you're always playing matches or in training camps, and it was almost around the year. So
So you
yeah,
would say it was a mixture of both weightlifting and running, sprinting, agility work, right? Like a mixture of both together.
Absolutely. And at that stage, strength and conditioning was just coming into the Indian sporting arena. And I think we benefited a lot from that. And like we were encouraged to take up
Yes.
strength and conditioning. And for me, that was the start, basically, of my education into strength and conditioning. Because until then, we really did not
Yeah.
have any
Fair.
knowledge about it.
Fair enough. Yes. So, what made you transition from a player to a coach? How did that transition take place?
Um, so I moved to New Zealand in 2002 after I
Yeah.
retired, and I had no intention of getting into hockey. I was just leading a normal life, and until I got the opportunity to work with Auckland Hockey,
Wow.
and I got into coaching in around 2010, and then in around 2013 or 2014, I got into the New Zealand program,
Yes. Yes.
and that was the start with Auckland, where I coached the Auckland team for 6 years, and yeah, that started the whole journey. And then I got an opportunity to work with the Black Sticks with New Zealand women, and
Yeah.
I sort of yeah, carried on from there.
Do you think the transition for you was quite seamless? Like, did you enjoy being part of the sport once again?
Oh, I loved it. I
Yeah.
think I haven't realized how much I missed it until I got back into it. So I've always kept an eye on hockey from the outside, but until I actually got back into it, I really I knew that this is something that I'm made for. I can't do a 9 to 5 job. I
Yeah.
cannot those kind of things.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, so this was my calling, I think.
It is absolutely. And you're currently the coach of the Japanese team as well. So how did that happen? And culture-wise, how are the three different? Like you played for India, you've been the coach for New Zealand and a coach for Japan. So culturally, how is it all different?
So culturally, New Zealand was a lot easier, I would say, in terms of culture. Very accepting, very open culture. Japan is more reserved and shy.
Okay.
So they're very accepting, but they're very reserved.
Yes.
So, and also language is a big challenge. So
Yes.
that was probably the biggest challenge that I had in terms of um, the transition from Japan
Hmm.
to from New Zealand to Japan. And culturally, I would say India and Japan have got similar
Similar tastes. Yeah.
values, and yeah,
Okay.
so it's quite similar in certain aspects, like the respect and the hierarchies and those kind of things.
Yes.
So very similar, and from that aspect, New Zealand is very different.
Yeah.
Uh,
So would you say
so
it took you a while to blend in, or were you, just able to get in and get involved right away?
fortunately for me, I got sort of I immersed myself in the
Yeah.
culture, basically, because you cannot be you got to be the part of the team that you're coaching, and you got to try to be as close to them as possible. So I kind of embraced whichever
Absolutely.
culture that I
Yeah.
was part of, and that makes it a bit easier.
I think that's the only way we can possibly, get something out of it is we absolutely get ourselves involved with the whole community. So I think that's the way
Yeah.
forward. And, talk us through the game in Ranchi. I think that was something spectacular. Your thoughts and feelings of that game. Congratulations as well, by the way.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a huge relief to make it to the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Um, it was a very tough tournament, so there are some very good teams that have missed out. And the third and fourth place against India was never going to be an easy game.
Yes.
But we played India 5 times, I think, in the last year. So we've and lost all 5 times. So we've had a good handle of what to expect from them. So I changed a couple of things, and fortunately things went our way as well, because India had the opportunities to score. It was
Yes.
one of those days where we just our defense was outstanding. So and has been throughout the tournament.
I think it's a
So
perfect underdog story there. So I think you must have been extremely proud.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
because India was ranked number 6 in the world. We were
Yes.
ranked 11 at the start. So now we have come to 9. But at that stage, we had nothing to lose. And the pressure of expectation was on India
Hmm.
playing at in your home conditions and the pressure of expectation. I've been on the other side as well, so
Yeah.
I understand the pressure of expectation, how big that can be. And that's what I told our girls, like, just go out there and play.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we make it as hard as possible and see what happens. Put the pressure on, and you
Yeah.
never know what will happen.
So do you think the
Mm.
pressure can either push you forward or just, propel you to fail? Because at times the expectations are so high, which could result in failure.
Absolutely. And like, take for example the Cricket World Cup,
Yeah.
the final. So the pressure of expectation is also a big part. So nobody was just expecting Australia to win,
Yes, yes.
except for except for Australia. So they came in with a
Mhm.
plan and all of that.
Yeah.
So, but the pressure on the Indian boys was far greater than any cricketing nation because
Yeah.
2.5 billion people are expecting you to win, and that can weigh you down at times.
Yeah, nothing when you become, like when you have nothing to lose, you become extremely dangerous. So I think that's the key that worked in your favor.
Absolutely, and that's what we talked about. Is like, well, it's a game. Let's go out there and give it our best shot and see what
Yeah.
happens.
And
So yeah.
could you tell me a little bit about the training regimes that happen before a major tournament like this, or the one that's coming up?
So what we are a camp-based program, so we're not
Yeah.
centralized. That means our
Okay.
girls are we don't live and train together. For example, like um, some of the other teams do. So they train together for 9 months. We
Yeah.
I had my team together for 120 days last year, so that's 4 months. So it's a bit more challenging
Yeah.
because like what we forget in India, it's the national sport, so the funding is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
In Japan, it's a small sport,
So
and
it's not as
the
much. Yeah.
funding is not as much. Yeah, so and that's a big challenge because we don't get to play as many matches as we'd like to, and it does hamper preparation sometimes. But the way I look at it is, let's work with what we've got and let's not
Hmm.
focus on what we don't have.
So true, so true. And Jude, we mentioned physical fitness. Talk about the mental aspect of the game. Even while you were a player, how important was it to be mentally fit? And were there times where you felt you were, under pressure or challenged mentally?
Uh, at that time when we were playing, we never had support.
Yeah.
So you had to actually deal with the demons and deal with the emotion by yourself. You There was no such thing as mental well-being.
Yeah.
It didn't exist, at least not in India. Now that there's more awareness around it, and it's coming into sport in a big way. So we've got a psychologist who works with the
Yeah.
girls, works offline as well, not just in a group. So sometimes it's a one-on-one session, and basically just giving you coping mechanisms on. There's always going to be pressure at our level.
Yeah. So
It's
true.
how do you cope? What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do to cope with it? So that's
I
what
think
we
it's,
focus on.
yes, soaking in that pressure and trying to make the most out of it. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Talking
absolutely.
about Indian hockey for a bit here, Jude. Do you think there should be a better junior development program that should be in place, which can extract
Um,
better results from the time you played and the current time as well?
I feel there is a strong junior program. What I
Okay.
feel is a need for a structured league. So
Hmm.
the hockey league was really good, and during that time, and along with foreign coaches who coached during that period, the 10-year period, India sort of started climbing up,
Yeah.
and it pretty much was on the same IPL model,
Yeah.
and that helped a lot of the current Indian generation, and that's why you're seeing the results with this current Indian team because they're exposed to top level coaching and
Yeah.
also rubbing shoulders with some of the best in the business,
Yes.
sharing the same changing rooms. I think that needs to come back in, and there are talks that in 2025 that'll come back in.
All right. Okay.
Uh, Having that will definitely see Indian hockey sort of go on the upward trajectory.
Yeah, 100%. And what about coaching methods? Do you think, the Indians should possibly recruit better coaching methods or, some more experience into the game?
I think more coach education is required,
Okay.
especially at the lower levels, at the grassroots
Yeah.
levels. And I think that's already started now. So a lot more Indian coaches are starting to educate themselves on modern lines because the game is ever
Yeah.
ever evolving. And that's where in the past we got stuck that we are the best. We know what we have done. We won 8 Olympic gold medals, but the game evolved and went past us. But we were still stuck in that glory,
Yes.
And then now they've sort of woken up and
Yeah.
realized that the game is evolving. And if we don't, it's you evolve or you die.
No, I completely
It's
agree with you there. Yeah. And is there something that you would like to change from the time you were playing, which you would want to see more of today?
I'm so far outside the program, so it's very
Yeah.
difficult. But from what I see from the outside, is that it looks like the team is getting all the support it needs.
Yeah.
They've got all I mean, the coaching staff is very good. They've got a good support staff around them, so they're being looked after very well in comparison with other teams in world hockey.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think they've got everything to support their growth.
Yeah, so true. And before we wrap up this segment, Jude, what would be your future plans with the team that you're with at the moment, the Japanese team, and your future plans personally?
So at the moment, we're just focusing on the Olympic Games now. So we're
Yeah.
just planning on what tours to go on, and we're talking to other teams. I'm trying to get as many matches as possible to prepare for the Olympic Games. And we've spoken as a group. Now that we've made the Olympic Games, we don't want to just go and participate. We want
Yeah.
to try and do well.
Complete.
So we're going to set goals for ourselves and try to make it a special Olympic Games. Try to do something special here, and we've got the capability to do it. And I believe that yeah, we're going to give it our very best shot.
I'm sure you will.
And
I'm sure you will. This team looks really strong, and under your guidance, I think they're in good hands. My final question for you, Jude, is from the lessons, it's basically about the lessons you learned from the game. So you've been around for a while, you played sport, and I think sport's a great teacher. So if you had to impart three of your lessons to an audience that is currently viewing us, what would that be? Three top lessons. I'm sure you might have many, but if you had three at the moment, what would you say?
yeah, I can. The first one I would say is just don't stop learning,
Yeah.
because that's a key to moving forward. Because as I said, the world is evolving all the time, and you must try to stay at the top of your whatever you're doing. Try to stay on top of it as much as possible.
Yes.
Um, I, there's a William Shakespeare's quote: "Give everyone thy ear, but few thy voice." So I listen to a lot of advice. I listen to a lot of people, and I try and I take what suits me.
Hmm.
So I will never push away any advice. So any advice is good advice. I will hear it. I may not necessarily take it on
Yeah.
board, but I will definitely hear it. So because you never know what you could apply.
That's true. That's true.
And and thirdly, like for me, I always believe in staying grounded and staying
Yeah.
humble. So regardless of what you do, just stay grounded, stay humble, and
Absolutely.
stay
And
true to your roots.
I couldn't agree more. Had a lovely time talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're extremely busy, but you made some time, and I'm so grateful for that. Thank you so much, Jude. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ishan. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Thank you.